I was very interested in art when I was young, and I was visiting all the galleries in Helsinki at the time. There were not many. It was during the 50s, but art was interesting me very, very, very much. And I was painting and filling my room with paintings from floor to ceiling. There is no space for anything else. And I, of course, wanted then, because I wasn't very good in school, so I wanted to enjoy the art academy. But my father was of different opinion, and we had some discussions about that. And because of my grandfather was a goldsmith, and so was my uncle. So I then agreed to go to the goldsmith school. And it was, of course, a choice that was quite good. And I was thinking of the lack of modern jewelry at the time, because of nice things had been made in Finland in glass and rugs and textiles and ceramics, but jewelry very little. So I thought that there I have something, you know, and so I started to make modern jewelry, but in a very Scandinavian style, you know, in the tradition of the Danish Georg Jensen and so on. But we was moving into the 60s, and the 60s offered freedom in many ways. And it was the hippie movement and new music and whatever. People started to travel. During the 50s, more or less, the whole Europe was licking its scars from the wars, and the 60s. I was very happy because I could introduce a new form language that based on very three-dimensional sculptural forms. I wanted to lift up jewelry design to the same level as modern sculpture. And it had all the possibilities, because if the function wasn't putting any limits on jewelry, it was, I wanted to make it a small sculpture. And so the new form language I was introducing was very revolutionary, and because of the very positive time for the introducement, it was accepted and became popular. And I was lucky enough to win a big design contest in South America, and had a lot of publicity through that. though that was very good, but I was still thinking that I'm basically a sculptor. I have been now making these small sculptures, but now I'm going to make bigger ones. And a very dramatic thing, I was first working with bronze, but then acrylic started to interest me, and I made a series of acrylics. I went to UK to cast them, because there was just 2 places in the world that could cast that big acrylic blocks I wanted to do. And one was in the West Coast, in the States, and the other one was in UK. So I made a series of acrylic sculptures, but then I continued with bronze, but then happened something very interesting, because I was invited to give lectures in the Pisa University in Italy.
When was this, in which year?
That was the year 79. And the whole Italian, the Mediterranean culture became familiar to me, and then something very important happened. I saw in Florence 2 Greek antique sculptures made from the Golden Age 400 before Christ. They were found in the shallow waters in Calabria, and obviously the shipwreck was already gone, but an amateur diver saw a hand sticking up out of the sand, and he was alarming museum people. They found 2 fantastic bronze sculptures, and they were then restored and showed in Florence. And I went to Florence from Pisa to see them, and with a bunch of friends, and they were very beautiful, and without any mannerism or anything, they were just so had such a radiation, of energy, and they were fantastic. So until then, I had been working with abstract forms, abstract sculpture. But abstract forms was coming to its end because of it didn't catch people's attention anymore in the way that had done during the modernism in the 30s or 40s. And I thought that I would try to make naturalistic forms, but I couldn't make naturalism just it had to be narrative. The sculptures had to tell a story. And so that's why I started to make sculptures that more or less taking antique meats and placing them in our time. And because many of the meats are very relevant even today. And so I was starting to make, telling the story about Icarus. And during the time in Pisa, in university, I had a magazine, a journal in my hands. It was the Lancet, I think, the British medical magazine. And there were a lady, Barbara McClintock, wrote an article, writing an article, where she said that it will be possible in the future to manipulate and shape genes. And it will be possible to create new kind of animals, and it will be possible to manipulate our own genes so we can have, let's say, blue eyes or blonde hair or more intelligence and whatever. And so I thought that what will Daedalus, Icarus' father, do today? Yes, he will probably manipulate genes. So he would, he first manipulated a horse genes. The horse is too big for this museum, so it's not shown here. I have it still at home. And then he created a super horse, and then he took the final step. He created out of his own son, Icarus, the first flying man. And he knew that the resources of Icarus isn't big enough. His muscles are not strong enough to fly. So he had to be a hybrid. And so he made his son a hybrid. And the son flew and flew. But what I wanted to do in the story is that the development today is running so fast that we can't really handle everything that comes against us because of there's so much that we just have to accept and hope that it doesn't damage the nature or our the human kind. So that is, for instance, one story. But every sculpture was really narrative. Here we have the blind runner, you know, he's running against a flow of information that he can't, he's desperate because he doesn't know if it is disinformation or information. He hasn't the capacity to see clearly because it comes with such a speed, you know, the flow of information. It takes, if you take the foundry, casting the piece in bronze, it takes a year. It takes for me a couple of months, maybe 2-3 months. In between, I was making some jewelry marbles or something, as small sculpture. But usually then it's transported to the foundry and forms are taken and it's cast and polished. When I start, I have a thought and a vision of what I'm going to do. I'm not making too precise. I can make drawings, but very, you know,
subtle,
unclear. Because I don't. If you make very exact drawings, the process when you are making the model in plaster or in clay, it becomes more or less a kind of a technical process. So I wanted always to have the possibility. I didn't want to lock myself into a special form. I wanted it to be have the freedom to during the process, you know, to change it, you know, and maybe I do it like this, now I do it like that, you know, and so on. I think the world has becoming very demanding because it's so complicated, really, that it's dividing to the human population in people who can handle this very complicated world where we are today, and those who cannot handle it. So it's and that's sad because it's not democratic because of the very complicated technology, you know, gets for many ordinary people. They just can't handle it. That line you said about, but it is of course a sculpture. like any piece of art. It has to radiate energy. In that sense, you know, a sleeping dog, but it's still radiating energy. But you immediately see if it's dead, there's nothing. And even if it's the same dog and it doesn't move or anything, but you have instinctively the feeling of that a living dog is living. And the same thing goes with the sculpture. You have to put everything right, every line should be perfect. Is it an abstract or naturalistic? Everything has to be played. Then it radiates energy in the space where it stays. You feel it. Henry Moore said once that the sculpture should be like a bomb that is ticking but never exploding. So it has to have the tension, and if the forms has the tension, it starts to radiate energy.